I fell in love with my late best friend's husband, but my friend can't accept it.
I don't think I can accept it either. You don't do that.
There's too many adjectives to this.
Don't date your late best friend's husband.
She would want it.
Don't do that.
She would want it for both of you.
Hello, everyone. English is not my native language, so I apologize in advance for any mistakes I may make. I, 32 female, fell in love with my late best friend's husband, 36 male, this summer. Ooh, it sounds like it sounds terrible, but please let me explain. But first, a little backstory. And yes, prepare yourself to stay here for a while.
Here I am, baby.
Freeze.
By the way, this comes from Intelligent Chain 87 on the r/OK Storytime subreddit. So my late best friend, let's call her Amber, and I had known each other since elementary school. When I moved to middle school, I met another friend, let's call her Ursula. Ursula and Amber were already best friends by the time I met Ursula. So I became the third in the group. 2 years before the end of high school, Ursula moved to another city, which brought Amber and me even closer.
Yeah, did she move under the sea?
Boo.
She's going to be the villain, right? That's got to be the villain. That's the bad
Dude,
guy in the story.
Yes, that's the name. Come on. We witnessed the beginnings of our relationships with our future husbands. Both of us started dating our future husbands around the same year, and both were in long-distance relationships. My husband, then boyfriend, let's call him Adam, was studying in another city, and her husband, then boyfriend, let's call him Thomas, was studying in another country. We supported each other, even through our own friendships, was also long distance since we were studying in different countries. I was in our home country, and she was in a neighboring one. I lost touch with Ursula for a while, but after we graduated from university, the three of us were together again in our hometown, along with our then boyfriends, later husbands. Ursula's husband, let's call him Patrick, also dated her since school. Right after graduating, Thomas proposed to Amber. And a few months later, Patrick and Ursula got engaged. And a half a year later, Adam proposed to me, and we all celebrated our weddings the same year. Everyone was happy.
And is this right out of high school or right out of college?
Out of college, it looks like.
Out
It's at university.
of college, yeah.
Okay.
Ain't that just the way?
I wonder who is getting married.
And they
next.
lived happily ever after, and nothing else happened. The end.
Chad, who's getting married next out of the three of us? And why is it me?
What?
What, you got something up your sleeve, dog?
Nope.
He's gonna call Russia.
Nothing up my sleeve.
You're gonna get something mailed here?
you
Something gonna show up at a doorstep in a
someone
few
might
days?
just fall right out of the sky.
From FedEx.
Yeah.
2 years later, Amber and Thomas decided to move to another country. In that same year, Adam and I moved to another city, while Ursula and Patrick stayed in our hometown and had a beautiful child. For context, our husbands weren't best friends and didn't really hang out outside of our group meetings, but they could have fun when we were all together. Given that, it's important to understand that when we all moved to different places, our communication was long distance again. Our husbands saw each other about once a year, just like we did, since it's hard for married couples to gather. I was more friends with Patrick than with Thomas because when Amber and Thomas moved abroad and we hadn't yet moved to another city, I would often visit Ursula and Patrick at their home. Thomas and I had plenty to talk about. We could laugh heartily and congratulate each other on holidays, but we weren't particularly close. Okay, who is OP about to get with? Right now, she's with Adam. Is
With
she going to
all
get
of
with
us.
Thomas?
Hey, yep.
There's a
Or
couple of options.
Yeah.
Patrick?
I don't think it's going to be with Patrick. I think it'll
She just
probably
said-
be Thomas.
Thomas and I, yeah. But she would often visit Patrick.
But Ursula was like not really. I don't feel like she was as tight with Ursula.
Yeah, but no. Who is she about? She's going to leave her husband. Who's she going to go with? Let's just predict it.
I think there's no way Ursula and Patrick are perfect for each other because they're both sea creatures. You have Ursula, the octopus lady, and then Patrick Star.
But Ursula may die.
No.
There's a friend that's going to die. It's either Amber or Ursula.
Whoa, come on. This is we don't
That's
want
not going to
that.
happen.
No, don't do that.
What
That's
makes
the
you think that's
title.
going to happen?
I know I tell you to
We forget the title, right?
I'm sorry.
What's the title?
I just want to predict, and I want people to be like, hey, I voted for this, and I was right.
I'm voting Thomas.
Thomas.
Tomas.
I am voting
Well,
Thomas as well.
Are you doubting Thomas?
I'm not downing
Did you see
Thomas.
what I did there?
I did see what you did there.
Yes.
That was clever.
Biblical reference.
Another 2 years later, I went through a very dark period. My husband passed. I had a miscarriage from the stress, and I almost lost my parents. Though thankfully, they're okay now. The final blow came a few months later when we were informed that Amber and her child passed during childbirth. Oh no.
God.
It was a true shock.
Oof.
4 terrible events in a year, 3 of which devastated me so much that I could barely function. The last time I saw Thomas was at Amber's funeral. I don't remember much because I was just existing, not living. Oh.
Yeah, that's a whole tsunami tidal wave of badness. And it makes sense there's probably a trauma bond going on here.
A year after Amber's funeral, with the help of family and friends, I finally decided to go to therapy because my parents lived in constant fear that I would follow my husband and friend. I love my parents deeply and didn't want to cause them pain, so I agreed to therapy. I didn't believe it would help, but after another year, I embarked on a solo journey to rediscover myself.
I made a little noise. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to.
I thought you were about to laugh.
No, it wasn't a laugh. I was just, that was my sinuses.
Okay.
It wasn't a laugh. I'm not laughing right now.
Why are you
Okay,
smiling?
I'm not, okay.
Stop smiling.
Okay. It's worth mentioning that when Amber and my husband were still alive, Adam and I visited Amber and Thomas in their country, where we met their local friends and became close friends with them. 2 of Amber's local friends, Elizabeth and Sasha, supported me and Ursula after Amber's passing, and I set out on my solo trip. I stayed with them along the way. I didn't see Thomas at the time, nor did I want to, as we would have just reminded each other of the pain of loss. That's how I started my new life, with travel and rediscovering myself in my new situation. I was still crying at night, but I felt the pain slowly settling somewhere deep. Of course, it will never go away completely, but I learned to live with it, to live again, to be happy, to have fun, to make friends, to love again. Another year later, I dared to go on my first date. So this is after her 3 years after her husband passed. And after another year, I started a relationship with a colleague. Let's call him Neil. Unfortunately, our relationship wasn't as rosy as it seemed. At first, I didn't notice the red flags, but once I did, I broke it off immediately. Let's go grow.
That's what we do when we see red flags. Yes.
The relationship lasted for almost 6 months. This brings us to June of this year. So about 3.5 years later,
Okay.
after the passing. Elizabeth, Amber's friend from abroad, suggested we take a tour through Italy. After checking our schedules and finances, we booked the dates for about a week at the end of July and the beginning of August. A week later, she informed me that Sasha, the other friend, and their husbands wanted to join us. We were thrilled. The more, the merrier. In early July, a couple of weeks before the trip, I went back to my hometown to visit my parents and relatives. That day, I was walking to my grandmother's house and stopped by the supermarket to pick up something for dessert. Imagine my surprise when someone tapped me on the shoulder, and when I turned around, I saw Thomas.
Smile.
Yep, she was looking for cake, and he was too.
So, enough time has gone by where maybe this isn't what
3.5
I
years.
thought it would be.
3.5 years, OP has processed as much as she could. It still hurts her. She's in a way better place now.
Just a crazy set of circumstances, though, for real.
It's
Absolutely.
wild, but unfortunately, that's sometimes how the way life works.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
you gotta roll with the punches, and then you can't
Like-
you can't be stationary.
Like Little Uzi Vert says, life goes on.
I'm pretty sure that's okay.
There's a lot more people who have said life goes on.
He made a song about it.
There's another person who made
Yeah.
a song about it.
Honestly, I felt a whirlwind of emotions that were hard to understand at first. There was a joy from seeing him, pain from the reminder of the past, and the awkwardness from the unexpected meeting. At first, I didn't recognize him, just as he didn't recognize me, as it turned out later. We exchanged bits of information about our new lives, and I learned that he was also visiting his parents. It felt like we were getting to know each other all over again. I was in a hurry to get to my grandmother's, so we quickly said our goodbyes, expressed how happy we were to see each other, and went our separate ways. I thought that would be the last time I saw him, but a couple of hours later, he messages me saying he was truly glad to see me and wouldn't mind meeting up again. Not just with me, but also with Ursula and Patrick. As you can understand, after Amber's tragic death, he cut ties with everyone close to her, even her parents, except for friends from the country where they lived and where he still lives. Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's fair. That makes sense. It's like,
Yeah.
I don't know if you could keep the constant reminder.
I don't know.
And stay, sane that way. I think you'd want to kind of be able to put yourself in a position to, at some point, move on.
Yeah.
But then, like, also reconnecting with OP is like that whole weird tale of positive and negative.
Wiener tail.
Yeah, it's wiener though. Can't say that word. Do you want us to get demonetized on all platforms?
No.
There we go. Ursula, like me, was surprised by Thomas's reappearance in our lives, but we agreed to his proposal to meet. The next day, we gathered at Ursula and Patrick's house. I swear, the first 2 hours of that meeting were painfully awkward and uncomfortable. Ursula and I tried to keep the conversation going, but the silence from Thomas was cutting through us. Then after 2 hours, once the booze had loosened Thomas's tongue, we were slowly sipping wine, he finally opened up to us and shared that he had come back to our hometown for a reason.
No way. No way.
Yes way.
He's not. He's
Maybe.
not about to.
I thought this was a reason of like, he's on a side quest. That's why he's here. What's your reason?
Is he about to be like, it was for you. I had to see you.
All these years, he had just suppressed his pain, drowning it in work, sports, video games, and then he started partying and dating random women, barely seeing or talking to his friends and family. I had heard something like that, but never asked Elizabeth or Sasha for details. Earlier this year, he accidentally came across my Instagram. He had deleted Instagram right after the tragic events, and after restoring it, he created a new account and saw that I was in a happy, or it seemed from Instagram, relationship. He immediately felt inadequate considering we had gone through similar tragedies, but I had learned to live again while he was just burning through life, spending it mostly on work and random women and booze, his words. In a way, that was his wake-up call, and he realized he couldn't live like that anymore. Thomas started therapy, resumed full communication with friends, then with his sister and parents. Wow. So she kind of like brought him out of this. We don't know the reason why he's back, though.
We
Not
still
yet.
don't.
Yeah.
But I guess that's good. A good influence. Normally, I say don't compare yourself to others, but in this one particular context, maybe it was a good wake-up call to be like, oh, maybe I should stop with the destructive behavioral loops, potentially. Or just like understanding that they are or have become destructive.
Yeah.
Because sometimes things that serve us earlier in our life, they don't serve us later.
Yeah.
And you have to recognize that and put them down.
Have to. The hardest part was finally acknowledging and accepting his feelings and emotions about the tragic loss of his beloved wife and their newborn child. He spent weeks visiting places that held special meaning to them and cried. Then he finally mustered up the courage to speak to and apologize to her parents, who had been like second parents to him. That's the main reason he came back to our hometown, was to apologize to his mother-in-law and father-in-law.
Okay.
Okay.
Which is good, to
Whew.
be clear. That's good. I was hoping it wasn't.
So he wasn't on a side quest. He was kind of on the main quest. Okay.
I guess, yeah.
That's the main quest.
I get it. I guess I'm just that guy who it's like, I guess actually that does make a lot of sense that I would think that.
Also, do you think you could start a company called Side Quest, and then people can hire you to be go to places around your city, and you can do side quests for people? You know
No.
how cool that'd be?
I think it needs to be main quest.
I want to say side quest.
Mm.
You're already doing main quest. You need a little side quest in your
But
life.
it's like, it's time for a new main quest.
How about you do main quest? I'll do side quest.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. The funnel. We are building the funnel right now.
Mm-hmm. I get people in with a side quest, and you get people in with a main quest, and then we.
And you charge them a one-time fee for the side quest, and we charge them a recurring fee for the main quest. So when they get distracted by the side quest, they're still paying for the main quest while they're doing the side quest. Okay, I know we didn't mean to do this, but we just taught you all an economics lesson, okay? Think about that.
Guys, we just became it. Okay, what do you want, Keon? What do you want out of this?
Happiness.
But unfortunately, he still hadn't been able to visit them. He had tried for 2 weeks, but each time he turned back halfway. We all cried. After calming down, he said he had planned to visit Ursula and Patrick, but didn't expect to see me. He even regretted suggesting the meeting, but was ultimately glad it happened. Ursula and I offered to go with him to visit Amber's parents, as we used to visit them often. On the appointed day, Ursula couldn't make it because her youngest son fell ill, so Thomas and I went alone. As soon as we walked through the doors, tears filled Amber's mother's eyes, and so did ours. Her parents weren't angry at all because they completely understood him.
Yeah.
We spent a very touching time together, crying and reminiscing about all the good memories with Amber, then laughing, then crying again, and so on, until midnight. After thanking Amber's parents and saying goodbye, Thomas offered to walk me home. On the way to my parents' house, we passed a tall building where teenagers used to love hanging out on the roof. He said he wanted to do something and needed my support one last time.
What do you mean by that?
I agreed, and we went up to the roof. There he pulled a letter out of his pocket, which turned out to be a farewell letter to Amber. I couldn't hold back my tears as he spoke aloud to the sky, the stars, and her. After reading the letter to the end, he burned it and scattered the ashes in the wind. We silently descended, and just as silently, he walked me home, where we said goodbye and went our separate ways. About a week later, he wrote to me again. He thanked me for my help and said how proud he was of me. I responded in kind. And then we stopped talking again for a few days, till I noticed that he had followed me back on Instagram. I followed him back, and a few hours later, he messaged me, "Is it true that you're going on a tour of Italy with my friends?" Bro's risen. But that was super cute. The whole letter and burning it into the sky.
I'm now
nice.
back on the track that it's too weird to date this guy now. You were
That was-
there when he dictated the letter of his
Yeah.
no longer with us wife and then burnt it. And I get that that's like probably like letting go and finding closure, but also like, I don't know, sharing that moment and sharing the moment of like going back to Amber's parents and all that. Like, I don't know. It would just feel it's just too much. It's
pretty
beautiful that they did this.
It is pretty intimate.
I don't know. It just feels like intimate for the wrong reasons.
Let's
it feels
keep
like
going.
wires are just getting crossed.
We'll see. Noodles are touching. I replied that yes, I am going on a trip to Italy with your friends. He simply wished us a good trip since there was less than a week left before the tour. We continued to chat about various topics, and I started feeling like I used to a long time ago, when we laughed together over trivial things. A couple of days before the vacation, we had our first call and talked almost all night. As I mentioned before, it felt like we were getting to know each other all over again. And then the vacation date comes. The whole group met in Milan,
Italy.
and we drove to Naples. To our great surprise, Thomas meets us there. Okay, quick poll real quick. 1, creepy, 2, sweet.
Well,
Creepy or like...
I don't want to influence the opinion, but I'm going to do it anyway because I'm going to say what I think. I think if it was just her on the trip, creepy. I think because there's like more people there and there's more friends,
It's sweet.
less creepy. And also I did see the context that comes in like the next sentence and a half, so it's not quite as creepy. I don't know. I just think there's so much tied up in their previous partners that them being together might just feel like an extension of these partners who are no longer with us. And I don't think that's a good base to build a relationship off of.
Okay.
It just feels too much.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it's touching, but like, I don't know.
It does feel a little bit too intimate. I don't know. Like, I don't need to see that. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But
hard to
everyone says
describe.
it's sweet. 79% of people are saying this is sweet. His uncle lived in Naples and had kindly offered us his house for a few days. All right.
Okay, well, see, that's cool, right? Now that's cool.
Whether it was the magic of Italy or just the comfort we felt around each other. Thomas and I spent all those days together, talking, drinking, and laughing. We had 3 amazing days in Naples, followed by a day trip to Sicily and then 4 days in Florence. It was in Florence where something happened that has been haunting my consciousness. The married couples in our group grew tired of sightseeing by the 3rd evening in the city, but Thomas and I still wanted to explore. We went out for a walk near our hotel. After 2 hours, we grew tired and sat on a bench overlooking the Arno River.
Yes.
This was the first time during the trip that we had been alone together. The atmosphere of the evening led to a more intimate conversation. We shared our fears about relationships and talked about how our future partners might never fully understand that we would always love Amber and Adam. They had been the loves of our lives, and there would always be a place for them in our hearts. It's difficult to explain, but I think people who have experienced deep loss might understand. That night, I realized for the first time that I no longer saw Thomas as Amber's husband. He was simply himself, a man I had found myself attracted to. Horrified by my own thoughts, I abruptly stood up, eager to return to the hotel. Thomas wasn't ready to leave and persuaded me to stay a bit longer, saying how much he loved the evening and wanted to savor it. I agreed, and we sat in silence for 10 more minutes before he began speaking again. He started by saying
Sorry.
I didn't owe him anything and just needed to listen. I tensed, and Thomas confessed that he had fallen in love with me.
This is this is
Too much.
Homework!
This
You just
Write this down!
You just talked for 2 hours about how you'll always love your previous partners.
This is like so
And now you're like-
hallmarky, man.
No. It's like they'll always have a spot in our heart, and it makes sense because OP and Thomas are in the same boat about this, and they both agree on this perspective.
I don't know. I think this is.
It's like the thing of like, oh, would you rather have your partner like if I pass away, would you rather have your partner go on with some stranger or someone you trust?
I don't think it's even about that. It's not about what the previous partner would want. It's about where they're at right now and how their previous relationships are kind of influencing the way that they're feeling about each other right now.
Because they're people. They're not their relationship.
I know they're people, but it's like, I don't know. It just feels like out of all the people on the face of the planet, it's like this is the next person.
Well, this is the next person, and I think they share a lot of similar experiences. One is friends, and then 2 as losing lovers and children.
They're bonding over grief. They're bonding over trauma that they've shared and that they both have intimate knowledge of. I just don't know if it's going to be healthy. I don't know.
People want to change their vote. This is too soon. It's been 3.5 years.
Still, though, but like
3 years?
But like way too close to the situation.
What were you
regardless.
3 years ago?
New Mexico.
I was in Tennessee getting over a breakup.
Okay.
I'm just saying people change in 3 years. Like I was super unhappy where I was 3 years ago, and now I'm like thriving. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
But yeah, no, neither of us can have any glimpse or like any thing of this. But it's just saying people change in 3 years, and they put a lot of work into themselves.
And maybe within those 3 years, they felt alone or like they're grieving, and then seeing their friend is like a familiar place. I don't know, like kind of like nostalgia.
It gives a comfort.
It's a comfort. It's a certain comfort that you like. It's also a trauma bond, but I think it's a certain comfort that you like.
Okay.
In a way, nostalgic. Not really, but kinda.
But I think we should keep going. He said that during the trip, he realized we could try to have a relationship because being with me felt as natural as breathing. He acknowledged how complicated the situation was, but felt that we both deserved to be happy. He believed I felt the same way, which gave him the courage to confess. I was speechless. I liked him too, and I couldn't deny it. But the complexity of the situation and my own consciousness were eating me alive. I told him that once we parted ways, these feelings would fade, and we would forget about them. That was all just the magic of Italy, and that it would be better not to make any mistakes. I saw the disappointment in his eyes, but he simply agreed and suggested we return to the hotel. Our rooms were nearly adjacent.
Oh, no.
And we parted in silence. I couldn't sleep that night.
Oh, this is so cliche. It's going to be so cliche.
Around 2 a.m, I went to the hotel courtyard for fresh air. To my surprise, Thomas had the same idea, and we met in the hallway.
Oh,
Creepy.
cliche.
No, this was creepy. That
I
was
would-
that was planned.
I wanted to go back to my room, but he asked, let's talk. Understanding the need to address the situation, I agreed. He sat down in the courtyard, and he asked why I was afraid to admit my feelings. I told him I feared being judged by others, our friends, family, and especially Amber's parents, because I was her best friend. It felt wrong primarily in relation to her memory. Thomas then asked if I would be afraid if we were just two strangers who fell in love. I realized that I wouldn't be, that all my fear came from the judgment of others and my own guilt. However, we weren't strangers. We had shared a history that couldn't be ignored. He asked for just one chance for those feelings, saying that fate seemed to be bringing us together. He promised we wouldn't tell anyone until we were certain of our relationship. Inside, shame and affection for Thomas battled. But that night,
Oh no.
affection won.
Oh.
And we kissed.
I'm pretty sure they did more than just.
And in that moment, the kiss felt like the most necessary thing in the world.
It's all too much, man. I don't know. It'd be too much for me. I mean, this is it's cute. It's a movie, yada yada yada, but like if you strip all that away, I feel like this is being set up for like
But
a really bad breakup.
Sometimes life isn't a movie. Like,
Exactly,
you can't treat it like a fairy
Yeah.
tale. And I feel like this is like so fairy tale, goo goo, boo boo. Like,
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah. Little Bat 90 has a good comment here. I feel divided by the story. One side I feel and get the comfort side, but the other I really feel like it's too soon for one, him to say that, but two, he needs to properly process his grief before.
I mean, it's been like 3.5 years, but that's not necessarily like it takes a long time to
for
fully
some people.
process that. And I feel like
Yeah.
if you had processed your grief, I feel like you wouldn't pursue a relationship with like your late best friend's partner.
Mm-hmm.
Like also on Thomas's side, like it was his friend who was married to OP and OP's friend Amber who was married to Thomas. So they're both in the same, but like I don't know. I feel like if you had fully processed that, you'd be like, this can't happen. It feels too wrong.
I'm kind of with the Talmud on this one. I think this is so like the way it's written. It just seems so fairy tale-esque in a way.
It's a novel. It could be.
It
This
sounds
very
like a
well could
novel.
be fake. But
I could be wrong. I want to be wrong.
there's
And,
plenty of
like,
crazy stories that are real.
Like this could be so real, and I feel like this does happen more than you think. It's just the way this is written and the time frame. It's like I get it, but it's too soon. Ugh.
It is in a
People
way. It feels
process
like it's
grief
written a little
quicker.
sterilely because it's like there's some ways where it's like it's like it was eating me alive inside. It's like
The fact that he said,
but how would you really feel? I feel like a real person would be like
he said fate. He's like, oh, this is what fate wants.
And I feel like
And
he's
it's like, no.
manipulating fate.
I mean, is
Yeah.
it fate that your uncle had a house in Naples?
Is it fate that you showed up there without telling anyone?
Is it
Is it
fate that
fate-
you walked out of the door at the same time she did in the
well, is
hallway?
it fate that you probably waited for her to walk out or
What? What a
whatever?
coinkydink. There's way too many coincidences here that's happening.
I feel like he's like, ever since he saw her on that Instagram one night, he was like, oh, I forgot about OP.
Too many coinkydinks.
Anyways, they kissed. But I stopped us and returned to my room, saying I couldn't do this. The next day, Thomas said work was calling him back, and he left. I spent the rest of the vacation with the group as planned, but a few days before the trip ended, I confided in Elizabeth and Sasha. They weren't surprised by our feelings and said we made a great match. They encouraged me to choose happiness for myself and for Thomas, saying we both deserved it after everything we've been through. Their words smoothed my consciousness somewhat. However, everything changed when I shared the story with Ursula. She accused me of betraying Amber and her parents and said I was going to ruin everything over fleeting infatuation. Her words cut deep.
Okay, well
And
that's
now I'm unsure what to do.
in
My
terms
affection for Thomas is not fleeting, and I know his feelings for me are genuine, but I can't deny that many people would view our feelings as wrong. Even I doubt whether pursuing a relationship with him is worth it or if I should prioritize my own happiness. Oh,
I think ruining everything is probably a bit of a stretch there.
yeah,
But it's more about, is this relationship healthy for you and Thomas? Forget everybody else.
yeah,
It's how is this going to work for you guys long term potentially?
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
and
if
I
you
didn't
can
like-
fully process anything if you're with your.
Do you think it's like
And
the taboo
their
thing?
partner.
Like it's like, oh, let's not get caught kind of thing. It's like, is this so like, it's not like an affair or anything, but it's like, is this just like, this is wrong, but it's so right, kind of thing.
Probably.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the part where I have my job's calling me, I have to leave the day after you didn't get the conversation you wanted. If everything went smooth and he got what he wanted out of it, he would have stayed.
Probably. Like, who knows if the job call was real? It's like, it's a lot. There's a lot going on here that makes my eyebrows go,
Yeah.
It would be so nice if it could work, though, right? It would be nice if it could work. If 10 years had gone by, maybe I'd say, okay, we're at a full reset here. 3.5? I don't know about that. Given all the context, I don't know about that because it's so tragic.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Thomas and I haven't spoken since. I know he's likely hurt and offended by my hesitation, but I don't want to get involved with him until I'm absolutely certain about my decision. We've already talked about it. Here's a freaking update. I'm not sure how to make an update here. Okay. Technologically advanced. What did I say earlier? Technologically
Challenged.
Technology challenged. It's my new word. Update. For the past 2 weeks, I have been in my hometown mainly because of my goddaughter who started school this year, and I just had to be there for her first day. At the beginning of the week, I had a conversation with my cousin, my godmother's mom, and she asked me about my trip to Italy. During the conversation, I mentioned Thomas a few times because he was there too. It's important to note that my cousin has a good sense or intuition about relationships. Back when Adam and I were just friends, she told me that I should pay attention to him, as he was a wonderful person and I would be a great husband in the future. As you know, she wasn't wrong, and Adam truly was a wonderful husband, had a great personality. She has made similar predictions for others close to her, and she's always been right. So her next words caught me off guard. My cousin, who doesn't know about the situation between me and Thomas, said that we looked like a couple in love in the photos. She meant the ones I posted in my Instagram stories, and that maybe I should consider him because we had a similar story, and we would make a great couple. When she finished speaking, I just let out a nervous laugh and said nothing. She was distracted by her older daughter, and we didn't return to the conversation. But her words stuck with me. I realized I couldn't keep dragging this situation out, and I had to make a decision. First of all, I talked to my parents. My mom was neutral about the situation, saying it was up to me to decide. My dad and I had a longer conversation. In the end, he, like many of you in the comments, advised me to talk to Amber's parents. Dad, like my mom, believes it's up to me and Thomas to decide how to proceed. But for my consciousness, I had to talk to Amber's parents. Gathering my courage a few days ago, I finally decided to visit Amber's parents. I felt like I was acting strangely, as about 10 minutes after I arrived, Amber's mom asked me what was bothering me so much. I couldn't tell her everything at once, so I sat in the bathroom for a minute while trying to calm down. I still don't understand why I was so nervous, but after calming myself down, I told her everything.
Girl, I understand why you were nervous. Are you serious? You don't understand why you were nervous?
I'm about to take your dead daughter's husband.
I'm in love with your late daughter's husband, who was my friend, and that we were here together and we bonded over how, like, what? Yeah, it would be weird. That's weird. That's weird. I'm in love with your son-in-law now.
Yeah, someone says OP is trying to knock herself out of it. Or I don't know. Anyways, poll, should they get together or not?
No.
Poll, get together or not?
There's
I'm
too
curious.
much wrapped up in it. I think you should be able to be friends. And I think the way forward is clearly like having this discussion and being like, look, we've got some complicated feelings. Yeah, maybe maybe we could make this work, but honestly,
I
it's
think over
just so
time,
much.
I think with if you go slow, very slow, but I feel like they're rushing into this.
There are billions of people on the face of the planet who don't have these connections to you. Trauma is a deep bond, but it doesn't mean that you should be dating this guy because you do have feelings for him and because he has feelings for you. You have a lot of other factors and other feelings that are probably feeding into that. And there's no way this is clear cut and dry.
Okay.
It's just too much.
All right. That's what he says.
That's my position. I don't know, but people have free will. They can do whatever they want. Let me be clear. I think that they are perfectly in the right to be together. My take is that I don't think it's going to be a good relationship for them. I think it's going to deteriorate and it's going to end real bad. And then instead of being able to maintain this connection and a friendship with this guy, now it's gone forever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It just doesn't feel like it's going to work.
I think maybe Thomas is doing some whack things, low key. He's not seeming like an all stand up guy. There's some manipulative things he might be doing there. But other than that, I think this could work out. Imagine my surprise when Amber's mom said that Thomas had come to see them the day before for the same reason. For the second time that week, I was speechless. She just took my hands and said she wished us nothing but happiness, as Amber would have wanted the same for us, and as Adam would too. She said that Ursula and I had always been like daughters to her, and our well-being would always be important to her, as Amber's was once. I started crying. After calming down, I thanked her for her kind words and told her she had been like a second mom to me. We had some tea, talked, and I went home. On the way, I wanted to call or text Tom, but decided to leave it for the next day when my head would be clearer. Well, the week continued to surprise me. I found Tom in the living room of my parents' house, looking through my childhood photos with my dad. My dad was telling him when and where the pictures had been taken. I would have thought I was in a movie if I hadn't been standing in the doorway, watching the scene unfold with my own eyes. Too many events for just a few days, don't you think?
Yes, actually.
I know they saw me walk in, but they didn't pay attention to me for a few more minutes. Then my dad got up from the couch, greeted me, and said he needed to help Mom with the groceries, put on his coat, and left the house, leaving me alone with Tom. I stood there in shock. Tom spoke first, without getting up from the couch. He greeted me and asked how my visit to Amber's parents had gone. How did he know that? I kept silent and stared at him. He got up, poured me a glass of water, and told me to drink. I downed the whole glass but still didn't speak. I just walked into the living room and sat on the couch. Tom understood I wasn't ready to talk, so he started first. He explained that he had been upset with me for a long time, but about 2 weeks ago, he'd realized he had to do everything he could to resolve the situation. It was important for him to understand if I had rejected him because I didn't have feelings for him or because of other people's prejudices. He made sure that no one except Ursula was against our relationship. It turned out that he had also spoken to Ursula, and she had told him everything she had told me. He wasn't pleased with what she said, but despite that, he decided to come to see me. Since I was at Amber's parents' house, my parents greeted him. He talked to my dad about the situation, but didn't ask for his permission to be with me because, as he said, only I could decide that. In the end, he said that if I didn't have feelings for him, he would understand and would never bother me again. But if I wanted to be with him, he would do everything to make sure no one said a word against us. I silently listened and thought about every word he said. He turned out to be so much braver than me in the end.
Brother.
Yes, I had come back to life before he did, but he was ready to be happy here and now, while I seemed to be looking for an excuse to push him away, afraid to finally find happiness.
I'm sorry, pause. There's no way that they just used come back to life in quotes to describe them coming back together after their partners passed away. That's
really bad taste.
Fictional.
Yeah, that's some
real.
wild taste, brother. That's
also, dude, like being like, oh, make sure nobody says anything bad about our relationship. It's like you can't control that. You're already operating from the wrong perspective. You just have to be okay with each other. You're going to have to block out the outside noise. People are going to either accept that you're in a relationship or they're not.
Yeah.
Again, this isn't about them. This is about you, both of you. And it's clearly, I don't know, it's like a bullhorn in my ear screaming at me that this won't work.
Yeah. People are saying AI.
Haviticus havuticus, find someone nudicus.
Huh?
That was my spell that I cast with the worm.
Find someone.
New, N-E-W, okay?
All right.
Okay.
But it wasn't just my trauma from losing Adam that haunted me. There was also something more trivial and even funny, but still, it came up during my therapy session. When my therapist asked me to set aside the fear of others' approvals and think about their things that scared me about the potential relationship with Tom, I, of course, said I was afraid of losing him like I lost Adam. When we discussed that fear, I realized there was another one, a rather silly one, looking back at it now, but it was inside of me, so I needed to address it. Amber was a tall blonde with a model-like European appearance, 5'10". She was very beautiful and a striking girl. Many boys in our school were in love with her, but Amber wasn't the only one. Most of all, Thomas's ex-girlfriends that I knew of all had a similar type. And then there was me, a brunette with Asian features, 5'6", with an average figure. I didn't fit Thomas's type at all. Yes, you might say that it's silly to compare myself like that because if someone truly loves you, looks become secondary. And I agree with you, but I think many people can understand that no matter how hard we fight our insecurities, they hit the hardest in our most vulnerable moments. But I couldn't allow myself to be stuck in my negative thoughts. And since Thomas was there, it was time to discuss everything. Gathering my courage, I spoke up. I told him about my fears and my concerns. He listened attentively and didn't laugh when I mentioned the comparison to his exes. Thomas said he was also afraid of losing me, but he couldn't live in that fear anymore, and he wanted to live fully. And if I allow it, he wanted to live with me and love me. But it was important to him that I love him too. Of course, it's too early to talk about our deep love in our situation, but feelings are definitely not fleeting. As for my appearance, he said I was incredibly beautiful, always had been, and that my hair color or eye shape could never diminish his feelings for me. He even joked that he wasn't exactly a tall Asian man like Adam had been. We laughed, and the atmosphere lightened up.
Honestly, whatever. That's like one of the most real things I think I've heard in this story so far. Is it's like, yeah, it's been years, and you're with someone close. It's like, you know, you can laugh. Finding someone you can laugh with about like grief or like someone who's passed away is a real thing.
It's a trauma bond.
Laughing in this situation is a human thing.
Yeah, it's a trauma bond.
Thomas asked if I was ready for a relationship, and for the first time in a long while, I didn't hesitate. I said yes, and hugged him immediately. We sat like that for a few minutes before we heard the sound of my parents' car. The four of us had dinner together, laughed a lot, and I was happy that Tom had so easily gotten along with my parents. He kissed me when we left. Not in front of my parents, of course, and asked me out for a date the next day. We were finally happy, or rather, he was, and I wasn't entirely. That night, I kept thinking about Ursula and her words. It hurt me that she didn't share everyone else's opinion. One of you left a comment saying that she hadn't fully grieved her own loss yet, and I think that's true. When you have 3 kids to take care of, there's not always time for grieving and proper therapy. I don't blame her, but I'm not going to make excuses for her either. I decided to talk to her before Tom and I make things official. The next morning, I called her and asked to meet. We agreed to meet for lunch at a cafe. I expected her to be more negative, but she was calm. I told her about my conversation with Amber's mom and my talk with Thomas and about our decision. I could see that she was full of doubts. Surprisingly, she apologized for speaking so harshly to me about Thomas.
I mean, that's, I guess, fair, right? Maybe she hadn't been confronted with that before that moment.
Yeah.
And then she's hearing like Thomas and OP are going to get together. She's like, what are you thinking?
Yeah.
Again, I disagreed with her sentiment of like, you're going to ruin everything. It's like, no, but it's like they might be in like a weird non-functional, like trying to replace our partner's with each other relationship, I think.
Surprisingly, she apologized for speaking so harshly to me about Thomas. However, she also said that she hadn't changed her opinion and that, for her, those feelings were wrong. She couldn't accept it, at least not right now. She didn't want to ruin anyone's life, so if Thomas and I had decided to be together, it would be better if we stopped communicating. My heart broke at that moment. Tears rolled down my cheeks, and I saw her eyes were also wet. Ursula left, and I just sat in the cafe trying to hold back my tears. After paying, I quickly rushed home and barely made it through the rest of the day. I work online, and if you guys want to make it through the rest of your freaking day, go to your favorite podcast platform, search up OK Storytime, and we will help you get through your day with hundreds of hours of stories just like this. Search it up.
Indeed.
And
varying degrees of realness or fakeness.
we talked about AI content. I don't think we didn't pick this to be AI content. Anyway, sorry.
I don't understand, though, where it's like, I don't want to ruin everyone's life, so I guess we can't talk to each other. It's like, hey, whatever happened to just being like, agree to disagree?
That, and I think Ursula just can't accept the relationship, so she doesn't want to put her negative connotations on the relationship, so she's going to remove herself from it until she can come to terms with it.
Well, I don't know. It sounded like she's like, I'm calm. Look, I don't even know how to give advice.
There's
for
thinking
this
with
because
your
it's-
emotions and thinking with your head, and I feel like this has all been just straight emotion.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all I'm thinking. If this is real, because it does happen when like, oh, fools rush in, or like love at first sight, all that jazz, and you're like, oh, I don't know. This is so freaking quick. It's wild to me.
Jellyboy has a good point. They said that English was not their first language, so they maybe used ChatGPT to spruce it up.
Maybe. I mean, like, we all have crazy. I'm sure you have crazy stories. I have crazy stories. Keon has crazy stories. We all have stories that would definitely not sound real if we told them right now.
I mean,
Right? But
I got crazy stories.
I think outside of whether this story is real or fake, like, you have more options. And I think if you really like, I mean, if you were married to this person then you were best friends with someone else, like, y'all are just too intertwined. This is an entanglement. Truly,
Yeah.
More than anything I have ever seen, the word entanglement applies here. Like, y'all are all twisted up with so many different plot lines and variables and emotions and reactions that it's like, you cannot have a clean cut beginning or I don't know, anything when this relationship's gonna be a mess.
Yeah,
I'm calling it. And you're free to experiment and find out for yourself, I guess.
But we have a little bit more, and we're going to find out the rest of the context. So, it was probably a bad idea to see Ursula on the same day as my date with Thomas. But what's done is done. When I realized I couldn't handle the date, I told him exactly how I felt. He suggested I come to his place, and I cried in his arms all night. I know this isn't the kind of first date he dreamed of, nor did I. But I was once again convinced that I had made the right choice. I also told him about the post here, and he read it, all the comments, and thanks everyone who shared their words of support. I'm finishing this post while he sleeps peacefully. It's been night here. We don't know what the future holds for us, but we'll do everything we can to be happy. And yes, I will move to his country soon, so this is likely the first and last update to the story. Once again, thank you to everyone. Be happy, and goodbye.
Not only are you going to get in a relationship with this guy, you're going to move to a different country.
And not
this is like the
freaking
second
update
date.
us?
This is like the second, like, let's say they've been seeing each other logistically or realistically here. Not that long.
But they have history, though.
I don't care if you got history, bro. People change after, especially trauma and grief and all this. People change.
Yeah, you do not know enough about how y'all are going to work out to move to a new country.
It's like 3 years
unless
later,
you're
yeah.
in Europe and it's like a 45-minute drive away.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's different. But like,
Moving to a different country for somebody that you're like, I don't know what the future holds for us, but I'm happy right now.
and crazy that it's like,
Listen.
so I came over and cried in his arms all night. I'm sure it's not what he expected. It's like, well, I mean, probably was what he expected because you guys are an emotional hurricane.
Yeah, I love romance. Don't get me wrong. I'm a sucker for it. But this is, out of all this context, this is not romantic.
No,
There's no romance here. This is like, hey, we got the same issues, right? It's been a while. You know me, I know you. Let's just ride the wave, kind of thing.
I mean, it's literally it's absurd that you are now gonna be in like a committed relationship with the closest possible thing you could ever have to your partners who have passed away,
which might be a comfort thing.
It's a trauma thing.
It's
trauma
not
thing.
coming from
All
the
right,
right
do the
place.
poll, do the poll, do the poll, do the poll.
What's the poll? What do you want to pull it?
Do people still feel the same? Is it like stay together or nah?
Everybody in this story needs to process their grief more.
Like I'm saying, the fact that she's willing to just cut ties with people because she's like, I'm so infatuated. Like, this is making me happy in the moment.
Well,
yada,
that wasn't
yada, yada.
that wasn't her, to be fair.
No.
That was Ursula.
That was Ursula, but I'm like, she's cool with it. She's just cool with it. It's just.
But it doesn't. Ursula didn't make any sense there because she was like, what? She was so calm, and then she was like, I don't want to ruin anybody's life. Well, it's like, just like, shut up, then. Just like, don't. What? So every time you see them, you're just gonna tell them that you don't approve of them. It's like, I have friends that I don't approve of everything they do all the time. I don't yap their ear off about it every time I see them, like, because that's like, I don't know, not what you do as a human being, maybe.
Yeah, and they posted this like 5 months ago, so we can probably 6 months ago, so we can probably get an update in another 6 months. I wish, like, low key, I wish that every story we read was after the pass of the human existence, so we have all the updates on Reddit that we possibly can get.
After
After like
the heat death of the universe,
the universe is doing it,
So we
and
could
like,
know
and then I go to the
exactly what's
future,
going
see
on.
all of the updates, and then I come back and I give it to you guys.
Yeah.
Ah,
Well, hey, people are complex. Whatever.
People are complex, but this was a story of literally just let your emotion take over here.
Complete the narrowest hallway, tunnel vision on, I don't know. Yeah. I think you would need some more therapy to unpack exactly why you guys felt like you were the only match for each other in that moment.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it sounds like she dated one guy for 6 months and then started, like, this thing with Tom.
Well, no. She dated a guy for 6 months and then had a year and then started it.
Well, I know that it wasn't 6 months. I know there's more time, but it sounds like she had one somewhat serious relationship that lasted half a year, and now she's going to date her late best friend's husband. It doesn't sound like a good idea.
I mean, hey, I'm for love, and we have 46% of people saying stay, 54% saying nah. But guys, that is the end of this story. Put your comments below of how you feel about it. And if you love us, make sure to subscribe.
We love you,
And see you tomorrow.